Hello everybody, I am Matt Williamson and you are watching Pop Goes the 60s. I wanted to do a quick Beatle update here. We just got the word that they've got a date on the calendar to release the new Beatles song. It's supposedly the last Beatles song ever that will be released now and then. And I actually had forgotten about this release that was upcoming. Just been busy and my expectations are not very high for this song to begin with. And though I may be surprised, we will see. The other thing, obviously this is now going to be part of the new Red and Blue releases, and this was anticipated. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Red and Blue albums. I was actually going to do an album or a video earlier this year on the Red and Blue albums and my own kind of expanded version of those two releases, and I never did it. But now I think is a good time to do that because Apple has expanded both of those albums and there's going to be multiple formats coming out. And I will probably not be buying any of these, but it's still interesting to see what they did. My understanding is that they did this release. This is probably the release that the Beatles have in their catalog that's has the most wide appeal, the most fans, because these are, and here are the CDs from the 90s, I believe. And I must confess that when I bought these, I was really excited, because at the time there was not a lot of Beatle product out there. And I really probably got overexcited because when I got these, I was a little disappointed. Number one, I was looking for the version of Help with that James Bond intro. I didn't expect that not to be on here. They had all the British mixes as well, so that also disappointed me. And I never really listened to them again, I don't think. The one thing I did pick up that was kind of more interesting than these releases themselves was this promo sampler that has 6 songs on it, which I thought was pretty cool. And I picked this up years later. I didn't know it was even out there at the time. But here we are, yet for another round of releases of the same 2 albums. And like I said, there's not a lot for me to get excited about buying these. Obviously, there's going to be the new song on here. And let's just go through some of the track listings, because I think this is more interesting than the actual release itself. And I'm sure many of you have ideas of how you would have expanded this set. And I know I certainly have. And I've always seen this as the greatest hits, the Beatles' most accessible music. And I think that they made some missteps here on some of the new tracks that they added. Let's have a look at them. Okay, so on CD 1, we'll just look at the CDs for now. So the new songs on here, we've got I Saw Her Standing There, Twist and Shout, This Boy, Roll Over Beethoven, You Really Got a Hold on Me, and You Can't Do That. Now, I would say, first of all, they didn't remove any of the songs that were on these original releases, which is probably a smart thing. There's maybe a couple questionable inclusions that they had on there, but I don't fault them for that. I think that's probably a good move because people got used to hearing those on here. And those became greatest hits just by virtue of being on here. So we've got these new songs here. I think I Saw Her Standing There, Twist and Shout are no-brainers. I would say This Boy is an excellent addition. I would say that Roll Over Beethoven, You Really Got a Hold of Me, and You Can't Do That would not have been ones I would have put on here. It seems like they're trying to throw George Harrison a bone here with Roll Over Beethoven with a lead vocal. I mean, I would say a better choice for a cover song would be Long Tall Sally. And if you really needed to give George some more visibility, I would probably just throw on Don't Bother Me. You know, that's not a popular song, but it's original and it's a good song. The other one that they did that I was a little bit surprised was You Can't Do That. Great song, but for a Hard Day's Night era song, I might have chosen I Should Have Known Better or If I Fell. Those songs were so big in the movie that it seems like those are more recognizable and therefore would be more appropriate for this release. Let's go to disc 2. It continues with the song Help. And we go into the Rubber Soul era here where they added one Rubber Soul song. It was already pretty overrepresented with Rubber Soul, I thought, but they added a George Harrison song, If I Needed Someone. That song probably should have been there to begin with instead of one of the other Rubber Soul tracks, just to give George Harrison a writing credit. And then we get into the Revolver period, which was underrepresented in the original release. And we've got 5 new Revolver songs added. We've got Taxman, Got to Get You Into My Life, I'm Only Sleeping, Here, There, and Everywhere, and Tomorrow Never Knows. I would say that the Revolver tracks that they added pretty much nailed it, particularly Taxman, Got to Get You Into My Life, Here, There, and Everywhere, and Tomorrow Never Knows. All probably are the first 4 tracks I would have lifted off of Revolver to put on any kind of retrospective. The only one I would question would be I'm Only Sleeping. That song is, I just don't find it very commercial. It's not representative of the Beatles' most, I guess, famous work. The track I probably would have thrown in there instead of that, if you needed to throw a Lennon track in, would be the song Rain. Now, that was a B-side of Paperback Writer, and I think that would have fit really well in this part of the album. The other song that's also missed that should be on here, there was a big hit in the United States, was She's a Woman. That hit number 4 on the charts, and that one is not on here. So if you look at the first 2 discs, you've got 19 tracks each. And I don't know, would it kill them to add an extra 20th track on each of these discs? I mean, there's plenty of room. I mean, what was the logic behind that? Logic is a term that we don't associate a whole lot with Apple's releases these days. And, you know, if you're going to give the people some stuff, give them 20 tracks, because we're going to see that it doesn't quite follow through with the Blue Album track listing. Let's have a look at that now. The first CD has 1 additional track. We see the addition of another George Harrison song, Within You, Without You. And again, for what I would consider a Beatles' greatest hits package, this song doesn't really fit the bill. You know, I've been at this a long enough time. There's a lot of people that just don't like that song. And I think it's somewhat of a polarizing song, particularly George's Indian stuff. And I will tell you in a moment what I would have substituted in its place. So 15 tracks on disc 1. Everything is pretty much the same with the exception of Within You, Without You. Let's go to disc 2. So disc 2 was very underrepresentative of tracks from the White Album. So we get 4 tracks added from the White Album. And number 1 was Dear Prudence. We got Glass Onion, Blackbird. Oh, I'm sorry. Hey Bulldog was the other one I was thinking of. That is not on the White Album. But those are 4 of the first tracks that I noticed that were added here. And obviously, Dear Prudence, Blackbird, to me, those are also no-brainers. Hey Bulldog is one of those songs that really, I think, belongs on here. The only one I find questionable is Glass Onion. Again, this is another experimental type song. I think we got our fill with the experimentation with I'm the Walrus and Tomorrow Never Knows. I don't think another Lennon experimental type song needs to be on here. The song I think I would have put on here, it's not considered one of their great works, but it's certainly popular and it's known everywhere, and that's the song Birthday. I thought that would be a great addition to this compilation. And if you had to have a Lennon song, I mean, maybe Sexy Sadie or Cry Baby Cry. I mean, there's a couple other options that they could have chosen instead of Glass Onion, which I think is a little bit of a dark song. So continuing on CD2 here, there's a total of 22 tracks on this CD, which, strangely enough, these songs are much longer than anything on the Red Album. So I don't know why they chose to put more songs on these later period discs. I don't know. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. But the other new songs we've got coming here are Oh Darling, I Want You, She's So Heavy, I Me Mine, and then finally the new song Now and Then. I would say that those 2 Abbey Road tracks, let's start at the end here. One of the things that I was hoping for this release was a proper remix or remastering or refurbishing of the 2 songs, Free as a Bird and Real Love. Those are from the anthology. And it seems to me that to have those redone now would be the appropriate time. You've got this new technology. Why not apply to those 2 songs and put them on here? I would probably choose remakes of those songs or cleanups of those 2 songs over Oh Darling and I Want You, She's So Heavy. 2 songs that I just don't think are representative of the Beatles' most popular works. And I guess once you start adding all kinds of tracks, you're going to get into the less popular songs, obviously. But I think that the point of this release, I think, would have been a great opportunity to gather those, what'll be the 3rd new song, the 2 from the anthology and Now and Then, onto this package. And I think they missed the boat on that one. So now I guess we've got to go to the anthology to get those those tracks on the CD single or on those double CD discs. A little bit clumsy to have to do it that way, but that's how they did it. The other song I didn't mention earlier, the George Harrison song Within You, Without You, you know what would have been a great substitution for that? Instead of that song, why not add the song It's All Too Much? And there's a 2-minute version of that song with an extra verse, and that's in the film Yellow Submarine. That would have been a perfect thing to add to this whole package. It would have been basically a new track that's never been legitimately released. And I think that would have been something that was a little bit more palatable than Within You, Without You, which just isn't for everybody. I love the song, but I understand also that it's not for everybody. As I look at these track listings that were on the Beatles website, and it notates what mix that all these songs are coming from. And there's so many mixes on here, particularly the 1962 to 1965 period stuff, that says the 2023 mix, which is exclusive to this release. And as I saw this in print, I thought, well, are they going to not do these individual albums with individual remastered box sets? It made me feel like this is kind of what they're going to stop with, perhaps. I can't believe they would do that with Rubber Soul. I mean, one of the most important rock albums of all time. How could that not get a standalone special, anniversary release? But half the songs have been remixed here on this release. And it seems like the point of these box sets, from the point of Apple, from what they say, is to do remixes. Something I'm not particularly that as interested in, but I know some people are. So anyway, interested to know your thoughts. Is this going to be the end? I don't know. I mean, I hope not. But I can see that the reason I buy these box sets is really more to do with the outtakes. So are there enough outtakes to constitute box sets from Please Please Me up through Rubber Soul? I don't know what's available. There's been talk of remastering the Anthology project. So I don't understand that at all. Let's say that gets remastered. What, we're going to get remasters of all these outtakes? Who cares? You've got the 2 songs, Freeze a Bird and Real Love, that could use remastering and cleanup of some sort, whatever you want to call it. But what, we're going to have to rebuy all that stuff? I suppose they're going to add stuff to the Anthology, and maybe that's going to be the thing that will be in place of redoing all those early albums. I don't know, but that's what it seems like they're doing. I mean, I hear all kinds of things, people on the inside telling me about Anthology this, Anthology that, and I just think the focus should be on the original albums. So anyway, that is my hot take on the Red and Blue releases. Like I said, I don't think I'm going to be getting these. I know it's going to be available in like cassette and obviously vinyl and CD. I mean, who would have thought when these came out that the CDs were going to be obsolete in place of vinyl and cassettes? I mean, what a world we live in. Yeah, so I don't think I'm going to get those. I'm sure there's other ways for me to get the Now and Then. Perhaps if they don't release box sets of these earlier albums, I would be tempted to get some of these remixes just to listen to them. But I'm not sure how much remixing can be done with some of those early tracks. I don't know how much. If you got the mono, why not? I mean, I think that's probably good enough. I mean, that's as good as it gets. So I'm getting a little bit. I think a lot of these remixes, I just don't have the time to, I guess, compare. I don't have the desire. I just would like to go back to the originals and just listen to those and revel in those. I think that's pretty much good enough for me. So enough of that. I've got one other thing I'd like to do here. Back a couple months ago, I did a review of George Harrison's All Things Must Pass. And I was going to do an album that never was, but I was going to use my Patreon supporters to choose the songs to do a single disc All Things Must Pass. So I've got some entries here of those that wanted to get their entries in. I'm going to pick it right now. Whoa, all there. We've got Rob Harrison is the winner of the All Things Must Pass album that never was. So Rob, I believe you have already turned in your track listing. So I will put those tracks onto my file and we will get that printed and get an album jacket shipped out to you of that album that never was. That's just one of the things that I offer on my Patreon subscription, that people can enter raffles if they want, and they can get some pretty cool giveaways. So I'm going to be doing more raffles, more albums than ever were. Particularly my Beach Boys series has got 3 albums than ever were coming. And those, you'll be able to listen to those on my podcast. So those will be available to listen to as well. So that's, I'm looking forward to doing those. So I'm working on that. I've got a couple other giveaways from an author I'm going to be having on here very shortly. Steve Matteo, who wrote the book Act Naturally, The Beatles on Film. Excellent book. I will be going over that with him in the next video. So do check back at Pop Goes the 60s.
And all I gotta do is act now.